Good morning. Please stand, stretch. Join me for Morning is Broken, number 38. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. We're glad to have you with us. UUCS is a very welcoming congregation, and we appreciate your unique experiences, backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyle. If you're one of our longtime members or have been here for a short time, or if you're joining us today for the very first time, we're so glad to have you with us. We're also very grateful for those of you who are streaming the service today. Hi, Candace. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Bob. As well as our Zoomers who attend on our screen. We're delighted to have all of you with us. It's also my pleasure this morning to welcome our guest speaker, Alyx Franz from Our Place Community Outreach Center. I'll introduce Alyx a little bit more in detail later in the service, but as a tiny preview from what I've learned about her already, I can tell you she just might be the poster child for Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Welcome to everyone. Let's take a quick second before we greet each other and greet our Zoomers today. Can we see who's with us? I think I see Terry. Terry, are you the host today?
Yes, I am indeed, and thank you for those kind and great opening. And as you can see, we have some familiar suspects gathered around this Zoom screen this morning, and so we're here and looking forward to hearing the talk.
Great. Who's farthest away today? Is it you, Terry? Oh, Bruce?
Oh, yeah, Bruce.
Bruce is in,
Yes,
where
in
are you,
New York.
Bruce? New York. Okay.
New York City.
New York City, great. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to everyone. Well, now let's take a few moments here within our building to greet one another. Be sure to say hello to someone you haven't met, if there is somebody here you haven't met. Thank you. We'll have more time to greet one another and share our stories during our social hour after the service, which, as always, includes Alan's great coffee and some good conversation. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. Our opening reflection this morning is from Jack Kornfield in Roots of Buddhist Psychology. We all have, without exception, a very deep longing to give to the earth, to give to others, to give to the society, to work, to love, to care for this earth. That's true for every human being. And even the ones who don't find it, it's because it has been squashed or somehow suppressed in some brutal way in their life. But it's there to be discovered. We all long for that. And there is a tremendous sorrow for a human being who doesn't find a way to give. One of the worst of human sufferings is not to find a way to love or a place to work and give of your heart and your being.
Please stand and join me for Chant of the Seasons. We're doing the springtime verse, number 73. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Sharp the smell of bloom bursting in our eyes, the torrents of the tulip. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Greening is the grass, soft upon our brows, the sunlight warm caresses. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us.
We will now kindle our candles of care. Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our minds and hearts, and who we want to wrap in our love and care. As we've been doing for quite some time now, we kindle a candle today for those caught in the senseless chaos that continues in Ukraine and Russia, as well as between the Palestinians and the people of Israel. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here and here in our hearts and minds this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world at this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
or danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my father and all my loved ones who've gone on. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I know dark clouds will gather round me, but beauteous fields arise before me, where love's redeemed their vigils keep. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. So I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home.
Thank you so much for that beautiful music. Before our story for all ages this morning, I have a couple of announcements or clarifications. First is the Wednesday, March 27th event that is in the bulletin and was on the screen is actually not an information night about OWL, but it is our orientation for OWL students who are currently registered for the K-1 program. If you're not already registered, or in this case, if you have grandkids who are not already registered, there still is time to register, but that event on Wednesday is for families who've already registered, and it's not a potluck. We're actually providing dinner and cookies for you. The second event is the Easter egg hunt that's coming up next Sunday. If you would like to contribute, you can bring a dozen or two filled eggs. You can fill them with candies, with stickers, with coins, with anything that you think would surprise and delight a young child. And as long as they get to the church office, the RE donation bin underneath the table in the foyer, or me, by 10:30 next Sunday, they will be hidden in the backyard. And at 10:30, if you would like to help in the hiding, the more the merrier. Many hands make light work. What, Max? Oh, my son says he's going to find all of them. So before the egg hunt, we of course are going to have a conversation about sharing and looking out for younger members of our community. All right. So today's story is called The Magical Garden, A Tale of Community Caring. Once upon a time, in a cozy little village nestled between rolling hills and babbling brooks, there was a community that prided itself on its spirit of togetherness and caring. But amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life, they discovered a neglected patch of land right in the heart of their village. One sunny spring morning, the villagers decided to turn this forgotten space into something truly magical, a community garden. They called upon the children to help. With giggles and glee, the children joined the adults in clearing away the weeds and the debris. As they worked, they imagined all of the wonderful things they could grow and share with their friends and neighbors. "Now, let's plant some magic beans," exclaimed Hannah, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The adults chuckled, but played along, handing out packets of seeds for vegetables, herbs, and yes, even a few magic beans for good measure. Before long, the garden began to take shape, bursting with color and life. But it wasn't just the plants that were growing. A sense of community was flourishing too. As the days turned into weeks, the children took on more responsibilities in the garden, tending to their plots and watching with wonder as their plants grew taller and stronger. One day, as they gathered for a picnic in the garden, little Henry noticed something peculiar. "Hey, look!" he exclaimed, pointing to a particularly lush patch of green. I think our magic beans are starting to sprout." The adults exchanged amused glances, but when they turned to look, they couldn't believe their eyes. Where there had once been nothing but dirt and weeds, now stood towering beanstalks, reaching up towards the sky. The children squealed with delight as they climbed the beanstalks, discovering a world of wonder and imagination high above the garden. And to their amazement, they found that the beanstalks were sprouting, not just beans, but something even more magical: ice cream cones. Down below, the villagers marveled as the children descended from the beanstalks, each one holding a delicious ice cream cone in hand. Laughter and joy filled the warm summer air as they enjoyed their sweet treats together, the perfect ending to a day of hard work and community effort. And so in our church, in our city, and in communities all around the world, let's always remember the magic we create when we come together and work as a team to solve problems. May our gardens grow with love, laughter, and of course, the occasional surprise of ice cream cones sprouting from magic beans.
Oh, she's throwing Easter eggs at me. As we move into a time of meditation, you're invited to find a comfortable, receptive position. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deeper breaths and reflect on these words from author and Rabbi David Wolpe. Once, a man stood before God, his heart breaking from the pain and injustice in the world. "Dear God," he cried out, "look at all the suffering, the anguish and distress in your world. Why don't you send help?" And God responded, "I did send help. I sent you."
I'm sitting in the railway station, got a ticket for my destination. And on the tour of one-night stands, my suitcase and guitar in hand, and every stop is neatly planned for a poet and a one-man band. Homeward bound, I wish I was homeward bound. Home where my thoughts escaping, home where my music's playing, home where my love lies waiting silently for me. Every day's an endless stream of
Thank you, Madeline. We did have some lovely song leaders in your absence, but I'm glad you were homeward bound, and welcome home. Our guest speaker today, Alyx Franz, a resident of the West Central neighborhood for over a decade, calls this vibrant community home. She transitioned from the food industry to the nonprofit sector in 2018, dedicating 4 years to the West Central Community Center, where she played a pivotal role in its operations during the pandemic shutdown. Alyx's intimate knowledge of the neighborhood, coupled with her passion for social justice, led her to establish the West Central Resource Library, supporting low-income families and the chronically unhoused with empathy and resourcefulness. In 2022, Alyx's involvement in her community blossomed, spurred by her participation in monthly Food Security Coalition meetings. Recognizing Alyx's willingness and ability to meet a significant organizational need, both Alyx and the assistant director identified her as the ideal candidate to support Our Place's expansion into a low-barrier agency. Today, Alyx wears many hats with her title of volunteer manager and resource navigator. Please join me in welcoming Alyx this morning as we learn more about the details of her work and the low barrier model at Our Place Community Outreach Center.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. I'm very used to talking about the work at Our Place and the work that many different groups in the West Central neighborhood collaborate to do, but bear with me having a visual aid today. This is the first time doing both at the same time. So, next slide. And next slide. So Our Place Community Outreach began in 1987 when 10 different churches in the West Central neighborhood started talking and decided that the communication about resources that many different families and individuals asked for wasn't always smooth and effective to get those folks connected to said resources. So multiple sisters came together, and a neighbor rented a small home at the top of Doomsday Hill, and that was the beginning of Our Place Community Outreach, which then was Our Place Ministries. They had a clothing bank and some social work, which is what I do there right now, resource navigating, on the first floor. And then in the cellar of this small home was the food bank. And ever since then, we are now a beautiful building on College for the last 30-something years now. Next slide. And just got a little redo of a paint job this last year from a very light blue that blended in with the asphalt all around it and like the Avista lot behind it, so that many families who had lived in West Central for generations did not know that we were right there providing the basic needs of hygiene, clothing, and nutritious, often local food. So now I'm very excited that every time I answer the phone and direct folks to us, I can say we're this bright orange building, and it really, I think the outside color really matches the energy that folks get when they come to Our Place for services. Next slide. So again, we provide basic needs through a low barrier model. When Our Place began, we primarily served West Central residents and our unhoused individuals a limited number of times a month. When the pandemic hit, we shut down for 2 weeks, completely physically restructured so that there were different lines for each department that we had. Our clothing bank, our hygiene bank, and our free food distribution line, moving our food line outside so that we were keeping all of our neighbors and our staff and volunteers as safe as possible throughout the shutdown. Thanks to Second Harvest, who is our primary source for our food, they decided that we did not need to ask for a zip code anymore. And because those restrictions were lifted in our food department, we laid that out across all departments and have stuck to it ever since these last 4 years. So low barrier means that we don't ask for photo ID, we don't ask for any kind of documentation. I would say an average of 5 to 7 phone calls a day still. Folks will always ask, they'll start with, what do I need to bring? And you can hear so much stress in their tone beyond the nervousness that you already have asking for assistance for the first time, which we are seeing a lot of in these last couple of years. So I love every time that I can say, you know what, if you have a box or some bags, bring those. Otherwise, we'll see you during our service hours. And that sigh of relief of, okay, I can get some food for my family today, or I can get some diapers for my infant, or I can get clothing for my kids' first day of school, or adult diapers for my grandmother that I'm taking care of at home. There are so many small basic needs that add up that our place can provide that help folks offset those higher necessities that we are all facing cost-wise, like the rent hikes that are definitely prevalent in the West Central neighborhood and Browns Addition, like childcare costs, like grocery and gas. So though what we do is limited, believe it or not, our hope is that we can keep folks housed and keep families taken care of. These are pictures from our clothing bank. Every department we have is set up in a shopping model, and we are incredibly dedicated to preserving that because we believe that our neighbors coming through and choosing their own basic needs is not only a more dignified basic needs providing approach, but it also prevents waste, whether that be food or clothes thrown out in alleys or random shampoo, tiny travel-size shampoo bottles. If you've walked through the West Central neighborhood or really anywhere in downtown, you can most likely, map out where large piles of just dumped out backpacks have gone because folks are seen as a number. This is a household with these ages and they need these things and they get a bag or a box pre-packed for them. And a lot of the times that goes to waste. Next slide. Our clothing bank is also a housewares bank. So the clothing bank is set up in a thrift store model. Our neighbors come through and shop for what they need. There's all ages, all genders, shoes, housewares galore. We have a whole room full of kitchen items, everything you can think of. Another room full of linens, from shower curtains to bath towels, kitchen rags, you name it. Our clothing bank is mainly sustained through private donations. Folks are always getting rid of clothing. We sort through everything. We wash things when needed. And in this last year, we have partnered with Spokane Zero Waste and hosted a few of the first handful of Mendit cafes when those started popping up in town as well. So now when we get a piece of clothing that just has a missing button or a missing zipper, we don't have to throw that in the trash or put in a dump pile or donate to another organization that will just keep passing it along. We can wash it, send it to Mendit Cafe, and then they return it repaired, and voila, you have an upcycled item that is perfectly ready to be used once again. We also get a grant through Bombas Socks, and when Bombas, if you're not familiar with it, for every pair that you purchase, another pair is donated to a nonprofit. So we do get new socks from them every year, and we just got new underwear added to that as well, which is super exciting because that's a huge need year-round. Lastly, when it comes to our clothing bank, we we rarely turn down donations. So if we have any camping gear or very, weatherproof items donated, we have to remember that the West Central neighborhood, 2/3 of that city boundary line is along our river, which means that many of the folks we serve, especially being low barrier, their home is a camp on the river. Our chronically unhoused folks many times, when the weather permits, feel safer camping down by the river instead of staying in a shelter. So weatherproof items and camping items are always a huge need that fly right through the door when we do get them donated. So we always have a stash of items specifically for our unhoused folks. And of course, word gets out best on the ground, no matter what population you're working with, but especially with our unhoused folks. So we have started in this last year, folks can call because we are donation-based and make a same-day hold for something like a sleeping bag or a pair of men's boots that are in their size. So we do our best always to meet a need when we have the inventory to do so. And not only that, but partner more and more so with different housing specialists through different nonprofits, different caseworkers. We have a gal that comes every week from Goodwill Industries with a new neighbor in need, just to make sure that things aren't sitting around not being used, right? That folks are getting what they need as soon as they need it. So next slide. Our hygiene bank is based on donation and also through grants. We partner with Inland Northwest Partners, previously Spokane Valley Partnership, for diapers and wipes as well. And we have all the basic needs that you could think of, as well as cosmetic items and hair items through Project Beauty Share. So in our hygiene bank, we do have an order ticket that our neighbors fill out with those basic needs. Otherwise, there is a space where they can shop for a certain number of items yet again. Next slide. And this is a picture of a couple of our volunteers in our hygiene bank, as well as many partners that help provide us with items. The Spokane Wellness Partnership provides free Narcan and free medication lock boxes. And like I've already gone over, we get free cosmetic items, condoms, diapers, adult diapers. So we have a lot for different populations. Next. Our food distribution line is by far the largest department and usually the first stop for folks visiting our services for the first time. It's my personal favorite department because my passion is also in food security and cooking and gardening. And we are very well known, especially during the PNW growing season, for having our Wednesday night free fresh market, which really does look like a free farmer's market. And because of the variety of sources that we're able to get our food from, everywhere from the large food insecurity agencies like Second Harvest and Northwest Harvest, down to place-based organizations like Four Roots Farms, Reclaim Project, River City Youth Ops. These are all more local and micro-local community gardens more than anything else. And during the middle of the summer, especially in that August, September time, we often have neighbors call in saying, hey, I have a shoebox of squash, or I gleaned a bunch of these Italian plums from my neighbor's house. Can I bring them down? And they know that we can get that local nutritious food to neighbors in need, so it won't just be sitting around being wasted. Next. These are many different sources that we get our food from. On the far right, in the middle there are our partners that are often on the food distribution line, especially in the warmer months. So Growing Neighbors is currently the only food delivery partner that we have, and one of 3 that I know of that does food delivery in Spokane, other than the Spokane Helpers Network and Meals on Wheels, of course. So We have folks often, that is a huge need, is food delivery in general to those that are homebound, especially during the winter time. So growing neighbors will adopt different families and come shop on our line and then deliver to those families. They're also helping us with compost every year for our community garden to provide fresh herbs and veggies on the line as well. River City Youth Ops, they have mobile programming this summer, and their kiddos in their program will be volunteering every single Thursday with us on the food line, which helps the kids see the full food security cycle of, farm to table. And then about just over 13% of our food comes from grocery rescue alone, which is through Second Harvest, but all of our staff and volunteers do that. So that's picking up from all of these locations in that far left column, food that, has gone past its sell-by date but is still perfectly fine, or food that just isn't moving as quickly. We're quite fortunate because even through natural grocers and Trader Joe's, for example, they also include things like essential oils and supplements and just some really niche items that are often quite pricey out there in the consumer world. So a lot of the grocery rescue also goes into our hygiene bank, which is completely free for our neighbors to shop through. Next slide. And once again, I just want to emphasize that part of our mission at Our Place Community Outreach is not only to get folks through the hard times and to provide a social community that is vibrant and non-judgmental for folks to know they can go back to if a hard time comes up once again, because it always does. We all have chapters through our life. But to also educate gently and provide options for opportunities of self-sufficiency. So our food distribution line is completely focused on the full food security cycle. Across April and May last year, we gave out over 4,000 free vegetable plant starts with pots that were donated to us and volunteers that were stoked to talk about gardening. We were also able to adopt a community garden plot right behind Salem Lutheran Church, which is practically 2 blocks away from us. And we had 2 unhoused volunteers that grew up gardening and love it, but never had a place to do that on their own in the last couple of years. So they were able to plant whatever they wanted in these 4 garden beds. That's something we hope to continue this year as well. And the community desire for wanting to know how to grow their own food has been growing exponentially from our perspective, just as being a food provider as well, which is super exciting. And this picture in the top right is it's just one 5-minute harvest of multiple herbs that we grew at the Salem Lutheran community garden. So our goal with those 4 beds are specifically berries, herbs, teas, and pumpkins for our community too, because we know that herbs are not something that you find very often on a free food line. So we did fresh cut herbs all throughout August and September to have on our food line. So that's an example of that. Next slide. And these are just multiple pictures of, in the top left, our food department staff, as well as many different volunteer groups. The Artisans is a community inclusion agency here in Spokane that we work with every single week. We have a few regulars that help out with cooking, with prepping dog food and cat food that we give out on our food distribution line. We had a visiting church from Vancouver, a huge youth group in that top right corner there. They just showed up. They heard about us, showed up. We had no idea they were coming, and spent the whole Tuesday through Thursday with us learning about really just immersing themselves in the West Central neighborhood and community. And then in the middle top there, we serve a family meal at the end of every service to our staff and volunteers, because Oftentimes we are all in similar boats, our neighbors, our staff, our volunteers. And it can be very chaotic and heavy social work in the 2.5 hours that we're open for service 2 days a week. So we like to make sure that using our food bank ingredients and either a staff or volunteer or a relative or friend will cook a nutritious meal and provide that for our team that put on service that week too. So we had a small youth group from Meade High School come down and do that for about a month every week as well. Next slide. We also have the only free laundromat in Spokane County. It is a mere 3 washers and 4 dryers, but we provide the detergent and fabric softener. It's first come, first serve, and open 3 days a week. And we actually just ordered brand new stackable washers because these guys are like 13 years old, and we're so surprised they're still working for us. But we are in the middle of collecting bids to actually expand our laundromat to fit about 12 stackables, which is super exciting. We've been waiting for that for the last 1.5 years. So, and some of us are fighting to get some mail slots and or showers in there as well. So, next slide. The only services we have that are not necessarily low barrier are a Vista assistance and our West Central Connect card program. Those are only for West Central residents. One is through the assistance through an Avista grant, and we can help a household from West Central once a year up to $300, and it opens up and closes like a portal similar to SNAP Energy Assistance. Our Connect Card program is funded through Greenstone Development Company of Kendall Yards and STA, and that is comprised of 40 active Connect cards that can, serve a neighbor for a month or 6 months, or I've had a family on there through multiple bouts of homelessness and recovery on that program for about 18 months, and they were able to land in a sober, stable place. She was able to get her kiddos back at the end of it, acquire a vehicle, a job, and a stable place to rent rather than couch surfing. So that's exactly what our assistance is there for, is to be just one stepping stone so folks can get off, get out of their history, I guess. And then just to note, our boundaries for these also include the Emerson Garfield neighborhood and a little bit north than the city's boundaries for West Central, which I did not know until last year. Next slide. And on top of the 3 services and basic needs that we provide 2 days a week, Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, we also have multiple annual events and engagements that we're at. Most of them are West Central family oriented, like Neighbor Day in the AM Cannon Park is a outdoor festival, family oriented festival and resource fair. We also partner with the West Central Community Center to do their free Christmas dinner and their free Halloween event. So again, just making sure that we're touching base with families to let them know that we're here for them to help offset any costs. We just started doing the Homeless Connect as well today, or this year was our 2nd year there, and we're able to provide socks and some like to-go grocery bags of food that you don't need a heat source or tools to enjoy. We also put on a free Christmas distribution event every year for our West Central families. So we collect donations all year and then put on the event at the Salem Lutheran Gym so that families can come through and do shopping. So you'll see some photos up there from that as well. Next slide. And then this is a whole can of worms, so I'm just going to shorten it. This last year was our first year signing up to be the go-to for the wildfire response relief from late August Gray and Medical Lake fires. Because we are a low barrier basic needs provider, we knew that folks were going to come to us to replenish anything that they have lost and to get them through that transitioning period with hygiene and food. So we immediately contacted Red Cross and the Spokane County Emergency Response Team and became the hub for all of the donations for families that were trying to get through that chapter. We collected everything from all of the temporary donation collection spots at a temporary warehouse that was donated to us by DeVries out on East Sprague. And we spent September, October, some of November, and some of December organizing everything, sorting through everything, labeling everything to go back to our place and be distributed during some extended temporary hours we opened up to specifically for wildfire evacuees. Saturdays, at the moment, we still see about 6 regular families come through that were affected by the fires that are just now starting to replenish things like housewares and clothing. Those first 3 months was pretty much just food, hygiene, and honestly having someone to talk to about what they were going through emotionally and how difficult it was for them to find resources that productively led them through this. So it was a very interesting experience because we are a very small nonprofit, and that was a huge take on. In September alone, we moved through 5.5 tons of donations, and then 1.5 tons the next few months. So we still have donations at the warehouse space that we're getting through, but we're finally starting to see families ready for a lot of the things that the community was donating early on. I think the biggest lesson we learned was that the timeline for those affected by a disaster doesn't necessarily align with the timeline that many of our community members not affected by it had in their heads. So we're going to figure out how to best work with the Spokane County Emergency Response Team next time something like this happens to really have community discussions more than we did this last time around. So next slide. You probably can't read that very well from here, but we are a small nonprofit, so we have a board of directors and many supporting churches beyond the first 10 that founded our place. As you guys have also experienced, churches have changed a lot since the pandemic hit, and we recognize that in the last year and are trying to do more outreach so that we can meet the many new congregations and changed congregations since the founding of us 40 years ago. Next slide. And our staff, so we served just over 44,000 individuals in this last year. And our staff is usually a body of anywhere between 9 people and 13 people. That's it. I would say 70% of our operations are through volunteers alone. And that's our most recent staff picture. Next slide. Again, volunteers are what make this possible, and that's what I do. We have many folks come through that do community service hours, and we post all of our volunteer opportunities digitally on those 3 platforms as well. But really, I welcome anybody to just pop in, while we're there Tuesday through Thursday and take a tour of the place and see what things look like, especially during service. Next slide. And again, this is difficult to see, and I don't have my own glasses, but you can find our distribution stats online as well. I love numbers, don't get me wrong, but I think the work itself and why we do it and how we do it is much more important than what we've done the last year. So next slide. These are, so on top of the couple of hats I have, building partnerships is a huge piece of the nonprofit world in Spokane that often gets overlooked. And this is something that has been prevalent and discussed in the Spokane Housing and Health Initiative that started back in November under Gavin Cooley. And one of the first things that they said in the presentation was that Spokane is not lacking nonprofits, we're not lacking resources, and we're not lacking manpower. What we're lacking is constant communication and active collaboration. And this is something that I saw firsthand at the West Central Community Center, and that is very pressing here at our place because we are expanding exponentially to serve many more communities than we were able to do so before becoming low barrier. Yet our capacity, it cannot keep up with that. So the only way to make sure that those are being served to have their needs met in a timely manner is to have active partnerships with folks that can fill in the gaps that we can't fill in. The biggest sector that we're seeing this in is in our immigrant and refugee family populations. We actually just decided in these last 2 weeks to pass our diaper bank on to Refugee and Immigrant Connections of Spokane because they have better tools for translating than we do. And in the last 2 or 3 months, we're seeing an overwhelming number of families come through that speak Farsi, speak Ukrainian. There's like 3 or 4 different Middle Eastern languages that we're all learning, and we've gone through the obstacle of using Google Translate or Tarjimly. We've had a few beautiful volunteers that will come through and translate for us as well. But in the end, we knew that we didn't have the proper tools and manpower to make sure that the resource was going to the folks that needed it most, number one, and in a way that made sure our supply wasn't running out right away, number two. So that's something that I'm really proud of for our place, is to recognize the community need and work with another nonprofit to make sure we meet that need immediately in a different way that works best for everybody. And these are multiple outside organizations that either I go to do site visits regularly, or they bring their an employee or like housing specialists, social caseworkers through with new neighbors every week to make sure that different populations are connected. Next slide. Okay, how much time do I have? I feel like I'm getting there. Okay. This is the piece that matters most. So I always think of our place as when you're there volunteering or when you're there as a staff member, as you learn the stories of the folks that you work with, you understand that either that person was in the same spot that our neighbor across the table was in at one point, or we're both very similarly still in the same spot, especially the last year and a half or two. Things have been hard for many in our community, and we've seen the same community pressures affect our staff and volunteers that affect our neighbors. So because of that, benefit of a more smooth access to empathy and to compassion and non-judgment. When you're there working for the first half hour, you really pick up that it's a transformational interaction. It's not a transactional one. We have multiple neighbors that come through just to have someone to listen to their story, to catch up with. If you don't see someone for a few weeks, you hope that something really good happened for them. But the truth is sometimes it's the opposite. We see many unhoused folks that are in recovery or that are navigating systems that don't work very well for many of us. And we see families for the first time, and we see generations come back because history repeats itself. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to go on such a spiel as I usually do about this, but I took a survey on our food distribution line when I was in school for my intro to stats class, challenging Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This was his original hierarchy of needs. He reassessed things later. But through this survey of 80 plus individuals, I was able to build a new hierarchy of needs. And it did indeed back up what I've experienced doing social work and on the ground work with chronically unhoused and low-income families these last 5 years, is that the sense of belonging and love and compassion is right there with your physical needs. And I think that our place models providing that simultaneously in one of the best ways in this community. There's more information on that in this trifold in the back of the table because I need to wrap this up. But in order to continue making sure that we're providing our basic needs through a compassionate approach and through relationship building, we offer trainings for our staff and volunteers to make sure that folks are equipped to do so. So in this last year, we've done DV 101, chronic homelessness in the brain, compassionate response workshop, and upcoming, we're doing trauma-informed care through the Central Library downtown, intercultural communication, and many more beyond that. So it's something that as everything around us changes and as community pressures change, we too need to keep taking space and know that we have tools that we have yet to access, and that we need to keep expanding on in order to do the best job we can. So next slide. This is our fundraiser coming up. Annual fundraiser. It's a blast. You'll find more website or more info on our website. And next slide. And that's it. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Sorry I went over a little bit. Feel free to ask me any questions during the social hour as well, because I really like to talk about the how of the work we do and why that's important more than anything. But of course, I've got your answers logistically too. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyx. That was great. Please stand, join me for our last hymn, number 53 in the hymnal. I walk the unfrequented road. I walk the unfrequented road with open eye and ear. I watch afield the farmer load the bounty of the year. I filch the fruit of known one's toil, no trespasser am I, and yet I reap from every soil the boundless sky. A beauty springtime never knew haunts all the quiet ways, and sweeter shines the landscape through its veil of autumn haze. I face the hills, the streams, the wood, and feel with all akin. My heart expands their fortitude, and peace and joy flow in.
Our benediction today is from the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.